Hello, good morning. Well, not morning anymore, good afternoon. Welcome into the goal setting webinar. I'm gonna let a few people get some time for everyone to roll in here. But we'll get started in another minute or so, as it's right at 12 o'clock. So I'll be a little nice here. But we are going to be going over today some goal setting as well as how to make your goals. I don't want to say make them stick, but how to hit them and be successful with our goals that we have set for ourselves for this year. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Jazzy, Program Manager with Access at Autodesk. You don't already know who I am. And like I said, we're going to be going over goal setting today. So for our topics here, we're going to start off. I'm sure we've all heard of SMART goals, but I have a little bit of a twist on that with smarter goals. So we're going to go over that first. And then we're going to go into breaking our goals down and then breaking the barriers that we might have when we want to be reaching our goals. And then I'll kind of summarize our key points here at the end. And there will be time for questions at the end. So you can always type them in the chat during my, like while I'm talking, and I'll visit them at the end or whatever you need. So getting right into our smarter goals. So there are, other forms of goal setting, but I really do like the smarter goals way of doing it. So I'm sure, again, we might have heard of the SMART part of it. So that's kind of what this slide is, right? So we have specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So when we're setting our goals, we do need them to be specific, right? Because the more specific they are, the more likely we are to stick to them because we know exactly what we're aiming for. If it's really vague, like even the example I have here, I want to eat more vegetables, that is pretty vague, right? So, there are steps to take to make that more specific again, so that we're more likely to follow through and stick with our goals. Next, we have measurable, right? When we have an amount that we can measure for our goals, having that quantitative aspect again helps us know when we've completed it, right? So if I just say I want to eat more vegetables, okay, how much is more, right? I don't know. But if I say I want to have 3 servings of vegetables a day, right, then I'll know when I meet that goal, when I start eating those 3 servings every day. Then we have attainable. So obviously we want to challenge ourselves, but we do also need to be realistic, right? Like if we set a goal that we could not, complete in a certain time frame, right? It's going to be a little bit discouraging. And we really want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success by making sure that we're challenging ourselves, but we can still reach that. So, an example, again, going off our vegetable example, if I'm currently only eating 1 serving, then my goal is to get to 3, right? So that's only 2 more servings a day versus if I'm eating 0 vegetables and now all of a sudden I want to eat 10 servings a day. Like that's not as attainable as going from 1 to 3. So keeping that in mind when setting your goals. Our R is relevant. The first R, there's 2. So the first R is relevant. You really want to set goals that matter to you and that motivate you, because if it's not really relevant to what you are or what your values are or what you're motivated by, we're really not going to be, we're not really going to be as encouraged or motivated to hit those goals, right? So, is it going to inspire you to be a better person? Like, is it, meaningful to you or your family or whatever it is? Which I do want to quickly side note here. The goals, this whole presentation does not have to be fitness or health related. You can also use these for your personal goals, your career goals, whatever goals you have for your life. I did want to make that note earlier, and I'm making it now. So it does not have to be fitness related, but I digress. So again, example of this would be, eating more vegetables is going to help me have more energy for my family at the end of the day, right? So having that relevant aspect of it to remind you kind of like, okay, yes, like I want to be better for my family. So, having more energy will help with that. And then our T, we have the time bound, right? So we want to have I don't really want to call it a deadline, but I guess a timeline is a better word for that, right? Because then we have, that thing to aim for, right? So if you're just like, yep, I want to eat more vegetables, I need to eat 3 servings, but I don't really have an end date, right? We're gonna put it off, right? Oh, I can do that tomorrow. I can eat more vegetables tomorrow, or I'll do that, the next meal, whatever. You're always gonna kind of keep pushing it back. So, and that again, going with our vegetable example, I want to eat up to 4 servings of vegetable a day in the next 2 months, right? So now it's like we have that end date where we're gonna have to start adding in and changing things and kind of making our goal stick in a shorter time frame versus throughout the whole 2023. Then it could be December when we're actually thinking about adding more vegetables in. So that time bound piece is really important there. And then moving from that, the E and the R, the second one, right? They are smarter goals. So these two, I really personally love these two because it's really easy just to kind of set your goals and move on from it. This first one, the E, evaluate, super important, right? You have to track your progress. Like, is this goal still important to you, right? Does it still have the same meaning? Is it still relevant for you? Is it, do you need to kind of reset? What have you been doing, right? Are you acting in a way that's going to help you get to your goals? Are you eating your 3 servings of vegetables a day? Are you even eating any vegetables at this point, right? So taking time every so often to kind of evaluate where you are, evaluate like your day to day, how are things going? Are we getting closer to our goal? Are we getting farther away? What are our actions like every day that are going to help us get there or not? And then after we evaluate, we're going to readjust, right? So maybe we're taking that time, we're evaluating, we're reflecting, and we're like, you know what? I'm already eating 4 servings of vegetables now. I already beat my goal. Like, this is great. Like, celebrate that. Celebrate the small wins, right? And then maybe you can kind of adjust your goal again to increase your vegetable intake, right? Or you can be like, okay, I'm going to move to fruits now because I want to get my fruit and vegetable servings in, right? The other kind of side of the coin, right, is maybe we haven't gotten any closer to our goal than when we first set it, right? So maybe what are we doing? What maybe do we need to shift in order to be acting in a way that's going to get us to our goal, right? How can I change my habits to be successful at eating my 3 servings of vegetables, right? So these two parts of the goal I think are really important because it helps you kind of, again, for lack of better terms, it helps you kind of readjust, refocus, see what you're doing, see where you can be better, and kind of keep moving forward to those goals. So if any of y'all have heard me say this, I say this a lot. The goal, right, is just to be a little bit better every day. And if we do like a few things every day that are going to help us get to the end goal, we're going to be 365% better at the end of the year than we were when the year started. So that is always a goal, right? We want to evaluate and readjust, reset our goals, and go from there. So that is the smarter goals. Okay, so these are the E and the R, our addition to our SMART goals, the revamped 2023 SMART goals. So we have our goal set, right? And I'm probably going to stick with the vegetable one. I know another one I have is like a reading example. So I will have examples of like how we can kind of break things down a little bit more. By breaking our goals down, we're going to be able to set ourselves up with an action plan. And then again, we're going to be able to stick to hitting those goals versus if we just set the goal and kind of go about our day without changing anything. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to set our intentions, right? When we're thinking about our goals and we're, what are we motivated by, right? What do we value? Why are we doing this, right? If we don't know why we want to hit this goal or why we have this goal, we're so much less likely to meet that goal. We're less likely to get there. So really sitting down, thinking about your why and your motivation behind. A really great exercise that you can do during this time. It is also extremely frustrating if you have someone do this with you. If you sit down and you say like, this is, my motivation, right? Or this is my why. Ask yourself why again, right? Why do you want to accomplish that? Okay, why? 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 And ask yourself why 7 times, because sometimes our initial like motivation, our initial why is very superficial. So if we just keep asking ourselves why 5 to 7 times, we're really going to get into the deep nitty-gritty and figure out really what it is that's driving us. And that's going to help us be more successful when it comes to achieving our goals. After we have all that, write it down. Write down your why, write down your motivation, just write it down, get it on paper. You can always post it somewhere. Like if you write it on a post-it, put it on your bathroom mirror so you see it every day, or you write it down in a journal every morning. Just remind yourself, because the more you see it, the more you're going to remember and the more it's going to be in the front of your mind, right? And then again, down the road, when you have that and you're reminded of your why every day, you're going to be a little bit more driven and you're going to be, more successful within that goal. And then this last part here, revisit it, right? Things happen. Life changes. We go through seasons. We might not be in the same spot mentally, physically, work-wise, stress-wise, whatever, as when we set our goal 3 months down the road, right? So if we are changing, our lives are changing, but we're not adapting our goals or anything to that, then we're going to get, a larger gap there. So revisit your intentions, revisit your why, see if that still is driving you. And again, you can always evaluate, readjust, and move in the direction that works better for you at that moment in time. So, it's one of those things. Again, some things that I say, I say some things a lot, but we want to be flexible but rigid, right? We're flexible as in we can kind of change our direction where we need to, but we're rigid because we're still going in the direction of our goals. So those are the intentions. We do want to set our intentions with every goal that we set. And then from here, so this is actually, I love doing this because it really helps break it down, break your goal down, and help you come up again with that action plan, step by step, day by day, week by week, month by month, so that again, by the end of the year, you're 365% better than when we started. So from your yearly goal, we're going to set smaller goals. So you can kind of practice this right now if you need to, or if you want to do it later, definitely recommend doing this. So from your yearly goal, right? So you're going to set then a monthly goal. That's going to help you get to that yearly goal. And then for that month, you're going to set, you don't have to do a weekly goal. You can always do daily goals, or you can just do like, these are the 3 things I need to do every day in order to get to, this, to be this much closer to my goal at the end of the year, right? So an example of this is like, let's say my goal, I want to read 12 books this year, right? So each month, my goal is to read 1 book. Okay, so does that mean I read it all in one day? Do I break it down? How do I make it easier on myself to set myself up for the most success, right? So then let's say my weekly goal, I'm reading 100 pages a week, because that way I can get to 1 book by the, let's say the book is 400 pages. I don't know, I made all these numbers up. So so then like, I want to read 100 pages by the end of each week. So every day I just have to read 12 pages, right? So we're breaking it down. So here's our big goal. We have a smaller goal and a smaller goal, right? We're focusing in and we're creating, that routine and the daily habits to then become the person we want to be to hit that goal. So I personally do this every time I have a goal. I do things every day that help me reach that goal. So I'll have that overarching goal for the year, and then each month kind of set goals that are aligned with where I want to be at the end of the year. So this could be, again, it could be fitness related, it could be health related, it can be career related, it can be, whatever goals you have it for your life for this year, you can do this. It does not have to be specifically fitness, but that's where a lot of my examples are probably going to be fitness and health related. So setting those smaller goals can be really helpful to break things down into bite-sized pieces. All right, so we've broken our goals down a little bit more. We've found our why, we have our motivation, we know why we're doing this. We have our smaller goals set up. We got to break down our barriers, right? There's always barriers when it comes to goals. We have some common barriers here, right? Time, family or work responsibilities. Maybe you have injuries or limitations if you have like a fitness goal. maybe lack of knowledge or resources. And again, that could be with anything, a lack of motivation. Maybe you don't know what your why is, and that's the barriers to why you haven't met your goal yet or why you're struggling to reach your goal. And maybe the lack of the plan, right? And that's where, planning, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. That's the quote, right? So we want to make sure that we do with those smaller goals, we can then create that daily plan, the daily routine to then incorporate those habits that then become ourselves and then we hit those goals, right? So these all these barriers, there's definitely more barriers in this, right? This is just a few examples. And what what happens when we come across these barriers, right? It makes it a little bit harder to reach our goals. So we need to break them down. So a couple ways we can do this, right? First thing well, not really first thing, but we want to identify our barriers, right? So when we know our barriers and we know what's happening, right? Like what are the biggest barriers or challenges that we might have when we want to meet our goals, right? So we got to figure it out. Like what is going to come up, right? Maybe we know, for example, right? It's January. We all know it's year end, quarter end, right? So maybe that's going to be a really big barrier for us this month when it comes to starting our goals or continuing with our goals, whatever it is, right? So, knowing that that's going to happen, right? What can we do to then circumvent that from preventing us, right, from hitting our goals? Thinking about your goal as well. Is this a goal that you've had before that maybe you didn't hit it, right? Kind of think about the barriers that came up during the last time you tried to do this, right? So like maybe let's say, your goal was to read 12 books this year, right? And maybe like I know for me, I always say I want to read more and then I'll get a migraine and I can't really read for a few days, right? And so maybe it's like, okay, well, what can I do then anytime I do get a migraine, right? Maybe this time when I want to read more, maybe I'll get some audiobooks for when my vision's a little off, right, from a migraine or something like that, right? So, think about it. Why was it not successful and what can you do differently this next time coming up? And that's where, again, implementing some of those things like setting the smaller goals, breaking things down can help us really figure out, and also the why, how we can be better this time, right? And that's where also reevaluating your goals, like when you reevaluate things like every month or every few months, if you do it quarterly, whatever it is, you can then readjust and go in a different direction if you need to, right? So knowing what your barriers are can help us kind of work around that, right? So we're gonna figure out our biggest barriers, right? We're gonna write it down. Write it down. I'm such a believer in writing things down because if we have it written down and it's in front of us and we, write it down often or whatever it is, we're going to be reminded of it a little bit more, right? So we don't want to just set goals and push it to the back burner, identify barriers, push it to the back burner. We want to use that information and we want to use that daily, right, to be able to get better. So after we have all this figured out, we're going to create that action plan and a new routine, right? So setting those smaller goals, create your action plan too for something, right? If we know that we don't always have time, certain days of the week, right? What are we going to do when we run out of time, right? What are you going to do? Like creating a routine, figure out your backup plan, right? Have your plan A, plan B, plan C, right? So that way you have options for something that when it comes up, you know how to shift directions and still, again, flexible, rigid. You're switching your directions, but we're still going in the direction of our goal. So that is, how we can help with breaking down our barriers. So we've now gone over our smarter goals. We've gone over breaking down our goals, and we've identified and we're starting to break down our barriers, right? So how are we setting successful goals, right? We are setting our intentions, right? What is going to push us to continue to move? What is our why? Are we reevaluating that? Or are things changing, right? But we're setting our intention with our goals. We're breaking down our barriers, right? Because it's not a race, right? We can day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. Take it one day at a time. Just try and be 1% better every single day. Show up for yourself, and that's how you're going to get there, right? Last thing here, we're setting our smarter goals. We want to know our motivation. We're specific, we're measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, time bound. We're evaluating and readjusting, right? So use your smarter goals to set up your game plan, break your goals down, have those intentions set, and crush your barriers. So that is how we're going to be successful this year. So, with all of that being said, does anyone have any questions about anything I went over today? Any questions about goals in general? You can type in the chat. You can come off mute. If you need a little bit extra guidance, you can always send me a message on Slack or an email or on Teams or anything after we're done today. If you have any specific goals that you want to go over, just let me know. But leaving time here for questions, so I'll give y'all a second or two. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything come up in the chat or anything. So that being said then, that was all that I have to go over with y'all today. So hopefully that was helpful with, figuring out what to do with your goals and also creating that action plan. So like I said, if you need a little bit of extra guidance creating your action plan, let me know. We can have a consult and we can kind of figure out where you're at and where you want to be and, create that action plan to get there. So action cures inaction. We want to be prepared, y'all. So thank you all so much for joining me today. And hopefully I'll be talking to some of y'all soon about your goals.
Thank you, Jazzi.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Take care.
Hope y'all have a great day.
You
Hey, Jazzi. I'm sorry.